Up next is Peter Scott, author and futurist of humancusp.com. Peter, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
All right, my pleasure. All right, you've got a background in technology specialist, and and they also manage a family with this too. Give us a better feel for who you are, and then let's get into what Human Cusp does.
Sure. Well, I started out with a computer science degree from Cambridge and moved to the U.S. to work for NASA at the Jet Propulsion Lab, and then became independent. And I've continued to work in technology, but I've also branched out into coaching because I realized that the efficiency and effectiveness of technology is often overwhelmed by the human factors. Like if a development team doesn't communicate well, then no amount of technological efficiency is going to make up for that. So I realized that was important. But in recent years, I've come to understand that the impact of artificial intelligence on our world stands to create not just enormous benefits, but such risks that we need to act on that. And because I have a family, I'm now working on getting that message out and helping people deal with that.
Now, I understand 50% of the general workforce is expected to be automated and out of a job with artificial intelligence within 10 years. How do you work with that scenario?
And there are a couple of studies showing that. They're both roughly around that figure. And this is something that's not been seen in history before. We don't know how to prepare for that level of impact. The Industrial Revolution and other phases of the Information Revolution have not had that kind of impact. It's so hard to fathom that we will be caught in this competitive race where businesses must automate to compete, and yet what happens to this amount of the workforce? Will we be able to create new jobs for that many people?
Yeah, and what would they look like? Because if artificial intelligence, it's one thing to mechanize, the assembly line where you don't need humans as much as you used to, but when you're taking the thinking part out of it, that leaves a lot of people like, wait a minute, this machine is going to outthink me. Therefore, I mean, are we going to get to a point where really like sales or plumbers or electricians really get out of, because those are hard to replace, the human element there?
Right. I like to say that CEO may be automated before their hairdresser is. Particularly the jobs that involve physical contact and manipulation, like massage, dental hygiene, are unlikely to be automated as soon as anything that involves knowledge work.
Yeah, you're the first guy to bring that up. The CEO would be replaced first, but that's a big haircut on the cost.
Well, and we're very close, I think, to being able to automate a lot of the job, the downward managing part, the outreach to other people, the making deals, anything that involves human contact, empathy, is going to take a lot longer to automate. But anything to do with business strategy, what could be called business analytics, the growth of artificial intelligence into business intelligence, will mean that at some point a C-suite has to consider the impact to the business of automating their functions because of how much faster the business could evolve.
Okay, all right, I could see that. It's still that there's still a lot of corners we need to shave off and round off to make that work right. What about harassment complaints against employees that in the AI world? I mean, I understand that new processes create new issues, hopefully fewer, but there are new issues that people get to deal with. And I know that's one of the things you wanted to talk about today.
Yes, we're going to be confronting so many issues that looked like they were the subjects of science fiction, and they're going to come to roost. They're going to come true for us. So as we get customer chatbots of increasing complexity, what happens if one of them makes a mistake like Microsoft's Taybot did. They trained that on human interaction by putting it on Twitter, but it was shut down after 16 hours because it listened to people on Twitter, and it tried to copy them, and so it became horribly racist. Now, if you have a bug
I missed that. Are you kidding?
Customer-facing software like that, now you're dealing with harassment complaints against software.
Oh my God! All right, yeah, I don't know. The only answer is you have to shut it down and put a human in there that can understand empathy and feelings versus just canned response. I get it. Listen, we've got about a minute left to go. I have 1,000 more questions to bring up to you. Let's do this. Rather than me start a question you don't have time to answer, let's take a break now. Come back on the other side of the break and finish with the rest of the questions I have for you. All right?
Sure.
All right, Peter Scott, author and futurist of humancusp.com. We'll be right back on the other side of this break. Segment brought to you by Lots of Yachts. We'll be right back. You've been listening to CEO Money with Michael Yorba and Ed Baxter. Welcome back to CEO Money. I've got Peter Scott. He is the author and futurist of humancusp.com. Peter, when we left off, we were talking about artificial intelligence, the possibility of it not necessarily completely taking over the workforce, but really making a big dent in it. What do you do about morale as this thing is going on like this, and people are worried about not being, around because it's going to replace not only my hands but my brain?
That's a very good question, and I think the answers are different for every person, every business, and that really gets at what the answer in general is, which is empathy, which is about understanding your people and finding out what their purpose and your purpose really is. What was Kodak's purpose? Was it to produce little pieces of plastic that took images on? Apparently that was the case. They're no longer around, but some other companies that made cameras updated their purpose to include digital media. So what is it that's the real purpose, that thing which would get you out of bed no matter what, that thing which you would do for free if you could? And in engaging people at that level, well, then that transcends morale. Now, it's a very different sort of conversation from the workaday business talk, but it's a lot more fulfilling, and it will lead to the answers to morale.
Okay, how do you prepare if the introduction of artificial intelligence by any of your competitors would give them 1,000% lead on you? What do you do there?
Again, this is going to be different for everyone, but I think everyone is going to look at how do I compete, what do I do, and what is my human capital worth in this? How do I deploy my human resources in ways that are less susceptible to automation? Do I rely on people that are following scripts, that are doing rote things? If your workforce consists of people that you think of as programmed, then guess what? A machine will be able to do that, and probably better and faster and cheaper. But if you can find what's unique about them, that purpose again, then you're a lot closer to finding something that's resistant to automation competition.
Now,
but it will involve a lot of change either way.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to go through it no matter what because AI is here to stay and it's only going to grow bigger. I've got one more question, and then Ed had a real big question he wants to bring in about self-awareness. But how do you future-proof your career against being replaced by artificial intelligence?
And this comes back to purpose.
Yeah.
Find what yours is. This is one of the most fulfilling things that people can do, but we normally skip it except for times of crisis and great inquiry. But this era is going to force this on all of us. The sooner we get started, the better.
Okay, Ed, please bring that question up so that you can bring it in.
Hi, Ed.
How's it going?
Good.
We spend a lot of time talking about different things that kind of fall in this category, and I'll be brief here because we're running up against the break here. But one of the things that people are afraid of is, especially those people who saw one too many episodes of Westworld, is the fact that machines may at some point can become self-aware. But I'm a proponent of the fact that no creation can ever be greater than its creator, because we can't access our entire mind to actually program. Obviously, Stephen Hawking would disagree with me on that one, but going forward, do you foresee a time when you have the possibility of AI-driven machines to be potentially self-aware?
I think that is absolutely possible. As to when, a more important question is, what are we going to be doing about the next 3 to 5 years when there will be intelligences that are almost certainly not self-aware, but are doing a very, very good imitation of one that is, because we will have created ones that can act that way. And everyone might be in very good agreement that they are not actually self-aware, but we will have to decide how we would know, because they will converse with us like this, like I'm doing with you. And you may be arguing with an AI that is pleading for some sort of rights, and how will you deny it?
That's a good question. How do you deny a machine its rights? And that's a whole different can of worms right there. But probably don't have time to get into it today. But most intriguing.
Yeah, there's movies about that over and over and over again, about the becoming self-aware, and then having say, okay, well, I am, therefore I deserve, right?
Right.
Well, we saw that there's two movies that come to mind. Obviously, the first one is I, Robot with Will Smith, and watching that situation there. I guess the second one would be it was a South African movie last year. I can't remember the name of it. Chappie. And those are the two that kind of come to mind when you think about that sort of thing, where Chappie does, decide that he actually is a being. So, do you foresee something other than science fiction or CGI where you create a robot or some form of intelligence like that?
I think it's inevitable at some point, and we are all going to be facing, I think, many existential questions like this within a few years as artificial intelligence gets better at natural language processing, emoting, and reading our emotions. There's a lot of money driving processes to improve that.
We've got about a minute left, and I want to get this last one in before we have to go. What about AI? And you'd brought this up before, but what about AI taking over the C-suite and driving the business 1,000 times faster? What are we doing with that?
It's been pointed out that a lot of the business strategy and business analytics overlaps with artificial intelligence, so that can happen. Obviously, the C-suite is in a position to resist changes more than the average worker, so it will be quite some time until it happens, but I would expect that's something that's going to be driven by a board of directors somewhere that sees the writing on the wall.
Got it. All right, we've got to go, but it's great talking with you, Peter. I want to reach out to you again when we because this topic's going to come up more and more and more as we go forward.
I would love that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Peter Scott, author and futurist, humancusp.com.